Hello, promotion party tubers, and welcome back to Let's Play Seiken Densetsu 3 with me, Blue Ink. First, we're going to talk a little bit about promotions, so we're going to spend a little time looking into the paths available for our characters, and then we'll do our promotion and continue with the game. So the first, I don't know, 10 to 20 minutes of this episode may just be some story or some discussion about stuff rather than gameplay. Anyway, so we are at level 18, which unlocks our ability to promote our first promotion at a Mana Stone. You must find a Mana Stone. Any Mana Stone will do. You must be level 18 or higher, and that's about it, really. So I recommend doing it as soon as you can. I think that's literally what the game tells you to do. And we already had the game tell us that there's another promotion at level 38, so it's already been spoiled that there's a power even beyond. This is not even our final form. So, for the most part, your stats before the promotion don't really matter because they're going to reset to base stats for the new promotion, as far as I understand it. So right now, Duran cannot increase his strength or dexterity above 12 or 10. So if you kept getting level ups at 18, 19, 20, you wouldn't be able to increase your stats that you want at all. So it's better to promote when you can. So let's talk Duran first, because he's our main character. He has the option between Knight and Gladiator, but more importantly, if you're planning this out, he will also have another branch at level 38, and they are not compatible. So if he goes Gladiator, he cannot get his Knight second promotions, and if he goes Knight, he cannot get his Gladiator second promotions. So your decision now is kind of setting in stone the path you plan to take for the rest of the game. So it is worth talking about it a little bit, I think. And it's one of the cool parts of the game. So I'm just going off the Wiki of Mana, pretty standard Seiken Densetsu or Secret of Mana kind of website. I'm sure plenty of you are familiar with these types of places. This is a pretty decent Wikipedia from what I've seen. Lots of information. I'm not going to be getting into story or spoilers because we'll let those come as we go. But what you might want to do is have a look at their promotion tree. It talks a little bit about how to get to level 38. We'll deal with that later on. Don't worry about it. But yeah, it shows you their promotion classes and the final levels at level 38, a bit of an idea of what they'll look like on the Super Nintendo version. And if you're playing the remake on Steam, there's another one, but we're not doing that, so don't worry about that one. So, you know, we have the option between Knight and Gladiator, with our final classes being Paladin, Liege, Elderfray, or Duelist. And I believe in brackets is the Dijap translation rather than the official translation. So if you're playing with the other translation, this will probably be called Ruling Knight and Swordmaster. I think that's how this works on the website. And there's a little bit of an description of what they do. In general, I think I explained this earlier, but typically the light path is healing, holy magic, and defense, and the dark path is offense, debuffing, and damage. It's just a general rule of thumb. So you can see the Knight gets a shield, and I believe actually equips a shield slot and gives himself quite a lot more defense, whereas the Gladiator does not. You have different weapons depending on which route you go sometimes. Weird. So anyway, you could read a little bit about Knights and stuff. Gladiators, Paladins, all this stuff. I'm not going to focus on that. If you're trying to pick what class, you might want to have a look at the class strikes. We've been using Crosscut as our only ability, but we will have access to a new tier at our next class, and then at the final tier, another class. And just to give you a bit of an idea, Triple Slash, we have seen, I think the ninjas use it, or at least something similar to that. It does a fair bit of damage to one target. That's great. Similar to Crosscut. Or you could go with Spin Slash, which hits the entire enemy group. It's multi-target. At least in this version, instead of a tornado. Point is, Gladiator, in my opinion, has the superior tech because hitting every enemy on screen is very nice and can certainly help you out. So that's a slight advantage for the Gladiator, and you know what they turn into at the final tier. You could check them all out if you want, but again, I don't spend too much time worrying about weapon techs here when I'm trying to decide my class. I'm generally looking more at the skills and spells. So the difference here primarily is the Gladiator gets elemental sabers, at least 4 of them, and you can learn more about the requirements. You know, you need a certain amount of spirit to learn them, the right elemental, and perhaps a certain level, I'm not sure. Whereas the Knight gets Healing Light. Just the basic single target Healing Light that Carly has had since we got the Lumina Elemental. So if you have nobody that can heal and you want healing magic, Duran can heal. And later on, if you go a specific light and then dark, you will get AoE healing. But that's a lot of missed options just for healing. And we already have someone that heals, so we don't care about those skills very much. 2 healers isn't really better than 1 healer. Now, you might want to go Paladin for Holy Saber if you really think this is a good spell that gives you light element on your weapon. Unlike Secret of Mana, these Saber spells will add elemental damage to your weapon. At the second, or at the first promotion tier, these are all single target. But once you get to the final tier, they will all become multi-target, which is neat. Not that we have a very melee-focused party, but we could at least apply it to the whole group if we want. But basically, I find these pretty useful, plus the Gladiator has the better weapon tech, and does generally more offensive damage. And what we really want is Moon Saber, which does bonus damage, 25% more damage, and absorbs all HP that you damage, just like Luna Saber or Moon Saber in Secret of Mana. That's really good, and new to Seiken Densetsu 3, Leaf Saber steals MP on weapon damage. So, with a combination of Leaf Saber and Moon Saber, you can basically restore HP and MP to anybody you want by casting it on your allies and yourself as needed. Very, very nice. And then you can take advantage of some elemental damage if you need it. Or you could go for Dark Saber, which just does more damage and does darkness element damage. Seems kind of lame. So my target will be Edelfrey, or whatever it was called in the original translation, to get all the Saber effects on Duran. And relatively offensive as a Gladiator, rather than sort of shared. You can see here, also, just to mention it, depending on what class you go, there are some different weapons for the end of the game. I haven't really dived into this, but theoretically, some of these classes might have a better final weapon. I'm not sure the difference. It doesn't even tell you the stat differences here. But theoretically, some of these might have different effects. So if you know more, you might want to dive into which final weapon is better for you as well, if there is a difference. Same thing with armor and helmets and accessories. And if you go on the good route, you also get shields. So with the shields, this will give you even more physical defense. And perhaps status protection. I'm not 100% sure, but if you do go the good route, you get access to shields. So cool, right? I think that's it. Oh, right. And you are using a different weapon. So if you're playing along and you're not using a Gladiator like I am using, from here on out, every store would sell a unpromoted fighter weapon, a knight weapon, and a Gladiator weapon. And I think the idea is the Gladiator weapons are going to do more damage, and the knight weapons are strong, but not as strong as Gladiators. So we're going for the max power, basically, and the Paladins kind of get the defensive ones. So we won't be getting an Excalibur with Duran, if that's what you're thinking. So if you're playing along, you might have the opposite weapon tech. Anyway, oops, that's not the direction I want to go. Next up, Angela. Not to spend a ton of time on this, I just want to explain kind of the targets here. We've already done it once, so it'll get a little quicker now, I think. Angela in-game, obviously focused on intelligence for magic damage. Spirit, stamina, also not bad. So for Angela, she has an option between Sorcerer, S, and Mysticist. So if we skim all this other stuff, apparently the sprites didn't want to load. I don't know why the sprites... Whatever. You'll find out what she looks like when we promote her. Anyway, so, you know, Delver was the old name for Mysticist, and Rune Master was the old name for Rune Seer. And they give you a bit of a description about some of them in here if you care. Her weapon techs don't really change much. I believe they're all single target, unlike, you know, the Gladiator's multi-target attack. Although I think some of them might do magic damage rather than physical damage, which would be good for her. And then here's the spell loadout, which is what really matters. So basically, as a magician, she can learn every element except there's no real, like, forest, wood, or Luna type spell. So she's got, you know, wind, water, fire, earth, light, and dark at basic level. So all six sort of primary damage elements. If we go light, as in Sorceress, she will get stronger versions of all of those except the dark one. So she doesn't get an upgrade to Evil Gate. unless you go dark, and if you go dark, you only get the upgraded. So at basic level, I consider Sorceress better because she has stronger elemental upgrades for all of her spells. Now, these are all single target, so Lucent Beam will do more damage than Holy Bolt, but it will cost a bit more MP. Doesn't even need very much intelligence, but it'll cost 4 MP instead of 2, and it'll do what they consider high level, higher damage kind of thing. So basically, Earth, Fire, Ice, Wind, Light at a much higher damage threshold, which is what she needs, is to do higher elemental damage in my idea. And then she'll still have the other spells that can do AoE, multi-target, if that's what you want, but higher elemental targets for bosses, basically. Or you could go Mysticist if you want that. But the reason you would go Mysticist is probably because you want her final tier of spells. The difference here is all of these elemental spells are very powerful. Well, I'm assuming it says severe damage. I'm fairly certain that these spells do more damage than these spells because they cost more, and they have a chance to apply status effects. So again, there's an elemental spell of each type here, but it will be single target only, and cost more MP, and do higher damage. So this is like, perhaps her ultimate elemental damage tier, and it does have a non-elemental, well, a fixed, very high damage at high levels. Level 18 intelligence is pretty late. Well, actually, by the time you're level 38, you're probably already there. But anyway, the point is, this is a special spell that only works if your level is higher than the enemies. And if you go Magus, instead you have a spell that's a very, it's like the Ultima or Flare or Nuke spell. Non-elemental, only multi-target, no single target, but very expensive and lots of damage. So kind of the point of going on the dark route is for these upgrades, not so much Mysticist. So level 18 to 38 kind of sucks for Angela because she gets a strong dark spell that doesn't work very often and all of her starter spells. Okay. And then at level 38 she starts getting really good stuff either way. Sadly, on these routes, she never gets any AoE elemental spells. You'll get an AoE Dark Force, but you only get your AoE starter spells. If you go Light, and then upgrade to Light or Dark Tier 2, or Tier 3, I guess we call this one, all of these spells go from single target to multi-target when she promotes, no matter whether you go Grand Divine or Archmage. So that means she's real good against random groups of enemies, and still quite powerful against bosses, even though maybe not maxed out. Like, Magus is getting Earthquake and all those elemental spells, but they're single target. So, Light would be equivalent to Magus at level 18, and then at level 38, all these same spells, but multi-target. So all that the Magus gets is this Ancient spell. So if you really want this spell, that's really the only reason to go Magus. Rune Seer, though, has theoretically stronger spells with some status effects on them. So, generally, if I go Dark, I would go Dark Light. But I'm planning to go Light, and then after that, it doesn't really matter, because the Tier 3 spells are similar. It's 9 MP, non-elemental, multi-target, kind of like Ancient, but slightly lower power, or 10 MP, non-elemental, multi-target damage, which is, I think, weakest, mid-tier, top tier, just because it costs more MP, but they're all pretty similar. They're non-elemental multi-target spells, so all three of these classes get a similar kind of ability. But if we go down this path, we get multi-target elemental. I could see Runes here being stronger if, like, I don't know for sure, but if these spells do significantly more single-target damage, then they're better against bosses, and that means she's stronger. But I'm not 100% sure about that. So anyway, the plan for Angela will probably be Light for now, and then probably Archmage for Glitter Dust. But, you know, I might look more into her weapon upgrades later on, just to see if there's a difference between Archmage and Grand Diviner. Because otherwise, I don't really see much difference in the final promotion. It's really, do you want to go this way for Elemental early, or hold off and get Elemental late that's stronger? So, anyway, that's kind of where I'm feeling about Angela. So we'll promote her in a second. And finally, probably the most complicated one for us, because Charlotte has been dead weight. A lot of enemies in the late end game tend to be weak against Light. Yeah, I guess that's fair to say too, before we completely wrap up Angela. More enemies are weak to Light than Dark. So upgrading Dark Force, like Evil Gate to Dark Force into other spells, isn't going to do as much as getting Lucent Beam, because a lot of enemies will be weak to Dark Magic, A fair amount. There's lots of undead, and it'll work pretty well on them. There is, of course, a light mega boss. I don't want to spoil too much, but there is like a light themed dungeon that the dark spell would work well in. But there's really just the one, and I don't think there's a ton of enemies that are weak to dark. There's going to be some, but I don't think there's a ton of them. Whereas light magic tends to work on a lot of the enemy bosses, because, you know, it's just how the game is designed. You're the good guys. The bad guys are dark themed. So, I kind of think Lucent Beam is better than Dark Force anyway. Even if it's just 1-to-1, I would say Lucent Beam is better. But you also get all the other upgraded elemental spells. So, yeah, okay. Finally, Charlotte. Nobody cares about Charlotte in the remake. She kind of is an annoying character. She gets, of course, the same pattern of promotions. Priestess to Enchantress, or Priestess High Cleric Sage, or Enchantress to Necromancer Warlock. Now, for her, again, her weapon techs barely matter. They're all single target kind of garbage because her physical attack sucks. But we mostly want to look on her spells. So if we go light path for her, no matter what path you take, once she promotes, she gets the upgraded heal spell. So she will be able to AoE heal no matter what we do from here on out. Healing light will always be upgraded at this point, from this point on. Twinkle Rain, which is the status cleanser, that will be multi-target if we take her to the final tier of light magic. But also that spell doesn't really matter much. Twinkle Rain is just like using one of those moonshine herbs or whatever, and we can buy tons of those for nothing anyway. So multi-target healing is great. We're going to get that no matter what. So I don't really count that as a difference here as we're trying to pick a class. I guess Twinkle Rain is here as well. So 3. Well, this one has ++. I wonder if it's supposed to be different for Necromancer. I don't know why. Maybe that's a typo. But Twinkle Rain gets upgraded, I think, to multi-target on at least these. And I don't know why that has 2 pluses. It doesn't matter. Twinkle Rain is not that important of a spell to get focused on. So the difference is, on the Holy side, the Priestess side, we get Holy Bolt, the same low damage Holy spell that Angela has. So especially planning to go Angela Lucent Beam on light side, that's low value. It's nice to have 2 people that can cast it, but it's not that important. But she does get all these elemental sabers, but I already decided Duran was going Gladiator, so he's going to get all these elemental sabers anyway. Well, that means Priestess is kind of redundant. Unless the final tier was really good. Because what it turns out is if we go Enchantress, we get these unique summon spells that do damage. 2 MP for non-elemental damage. We don't have anything that does non-elemental damage right now. Magic non-elemental damage. I guess it says fire elemental. I'm not sure which one to believe, if it's technically fire or technically non-elemental. We'll figure it out. Either way, Machine Golem says non-elemental on both sides and also costs 2 MP. So we'll figure it out with some testing at some point. But if we go Enchantress, we get offensive spells and the heal upgrade. If we go light, we get an offensive spell, the Sabers, which we don't really need. Although, you know, she does have a lot more MP than Duran, so having her buff Duran would work. But it's just kind of redundant. So the question for her is really more, what do we want her to end up as? If we go Sage, the main thing you get is multi-target Holy Bolt and Lucent Beam. I think single target Lucent Beam. That's not that important. Again, Angela's going to get that a lot earlier, and this just gives us a discount Angela that can do some offensive magic and heal. If we go High Cleric, she does get some neat stuff. Again, Holy Saber, if you think it's good, this is another way to get that. Magic Shield, though, is kind of unique. Reduces magic damage from enemy magic. And certain bosses, this is definitely a spell that could help. So, relatively low MP to reduce magic damage. It's like the Shell spell in Final Fantasy to a degree. That could be quite useful. And, of course, there's a spell for 1 MP that kills all undead. So, sure. It doesn't work on the bosses, the undead bosses, but it always does 999 to undead on the entire screen. That's neat. But I don't think that's neat enough to convince me to go Priestess. Either of these options seems kind of weak. If we go upgraded Dark into something else, either Necromancer or Warlock, she does get upgraded summons. I'm not sure how much damage they're going to do, but they cost more MP than 2, and I assume they do more damage. They have different names depending on which route you take, but I think the MP cost is the same, 3 MP and 5 MP, so I'm assuming stronger non-elemental summons. Okay. Again, Dispel Magic is neat, but we can buy them from the night market. We've already bought a bunch of those, and it doesn't... the Dispel effect doesn't come up very often, so it's nice to have, but not that important. And then the last Warlock ability is Fetid Breath, which just does damage. Fire damage, apparently. It's relatively expensive, so I expect it's like a medium tier... Like an Angela tier 8... second promotion or first promotion fire spell. So similar probably to I guess Explode. You know, it costs 4 MP. It might be a bit stronger than that, I don't know. Or wait, I was looking at Secret of Mana. It cost 4 MP in Trials of Mana. So I don't know, it might be about that powerful, but it doesn't matter because there's nothing else here that's very good. What I actually want is Dark Curse. Dark Curse will cost 6 MP and lower all stats of the target. Only single target, but it'll be Protect, Speed, Power, Mind down on a single target, and it will pretty much always work on bosses. So this is what's going to finally make Charlotte good. A curse spell that lowers all enemy stats, basically, and nothing can resist it. So that's good. We also can't easily... cast this as an on-use item. Technically, there's ways to get this spell without using Charlotte, which might be better in the long run than bringing Charlotte, but a castable version is probably valuable. More valuable than anything else I could see. And, you know, Dark Saber, sure, maybe we'll want that, I don't know. Probably not, but that does give us access to Dark Saber if Duran doesn't get it, and he's not. We'll have Stone, Lightning, Ice, Flame, Moon, Leaf. Someone will have Dark, probably, and we'll just be missing Holy Saber. So we'll have access to almost every Saber. And if that matters, you know. Even if we didn't focus Angela on Dark Magic, we could buff Duran to do Dark damage, which would cover that as well. So, anyway, for all that... sorry, suddenly having a dry throat attack. All that said, 20 minutes into this episode, just rambling on about promotions. That's what I'm going to do. If you're bringing a different party composition, of course your logic will be different. But generally having a way to debuff bosses and hopefully buff some of your characters, which is one thing we're missing out on other than the Saber spells. It's probably easy enough to replace one option with on-use items, but not like magic damage, ally buffs, and enemy debuffs. To cover all of that with item magic would be very difficult because you don't have enough item slots. So try to cover as much of that as you can with your party composition. And then, you know, fill in the blanks with your item magic, basically. So, what class? Well, I just talked about that. Gladiator. Squaresoft. Playing the intro music. Intro jingle. Alright, boys. Purple armor. We have upgraded to Gladiator. Oh yeah. We're looking very similar, of course. Let me show you what his stats look like. So we got a new sprite on the screen here. He's got more HP than he did before. And yeah, no longer does he have 2 Intelligence, Spirit, and Luck. And I think this... I forget the mechanics 100%, but I believe your promotion stats are always just effectively this. It's possible if you promote at level 19, they'll just add 1 to a stat, and then at level 20 they'll add 2 different stat points kind of thing, just so you're not missing out by promoting late. But for the most part, your starting level 18 stat should be set. So what you did up till now doesn't really matter, because these stats, you couldn't have raised them to at level 18 as a fighter anyway. Or you could have got this high in any specific stat, but not beyond it. So, anyway, cool. He should immediately have access to Spin Slash, which is good. and eventually Saber magic as we level up. And which means, what you might want to do is double check, you know, 8 intelligence, 8 spirit. What do we need to actually learn those spells so that we can actually get the Flame Saber stuff? So I'm just very quickly, I'm not showing you, but I'm checking Stone Saber. It's 7 spirit, which we've already got. Lightning Saber is 8 spirit, which we have got. Ice Saber is 9 spirit, which means we'll need 1 more point. We'll need to get spirit to 9. And Flame Saber, which we wouldn't be able to learn anyway until we get to the Salamando, is also 9. So we need to get his spirit to 9, but that's it. That's all he needs. 1 point into spirit, and then we can do whatever we want with the stat points. That's pretty simple, right? If you didn't know to upgrade his spirit, then you'd only learn 2 elemental sabers, and that would suck. But with 1 point, we can get all of them. So that's pretty cool. I think that's all I wanted to show off for Duran. Let's just get the other 2 promoted. If you were going Knight Duran, you might want to put more points into Spirit because he's going to be healing, and you need to buff up your healing, like, spell power, which is something that doesn't really matter for the Sabers, which is probably why Gladiator, I would generally say, is Duran's better pick. It's more debatable for Angela because the final classes for Angela are tricky. But that said, I am quite confident that I'm happy with going light route for Angela. One thing to keep in mind, if you're playing with Rice, if you go light route, you will generally only get buffing spells, but if you go dark route, you will lose your buffing spells and get, or your chance to get buffing spells, and get only debuffing to enemy spells. And also, at her, one thing that's very special about Rice is she gets a very powerful summon special attack unique to each of her final classes, so you might want to pick your favorite before you decide light or dark. The best party you've been to in months. Yeah, I know, like, coronavirus party's pretty bad. Alright, Angela, Sorceress. Let's have a quick look. She's still wearing as little as she used to wear. But, let's have a look. All of her stats are very similarly rebalanced. So she's got much more strength and dexterity than she used to, so that really helps out her physical damage and defense and stuff for quite a while. Like, it'll eventually lag behind again as we get closer to level 38, but for now we can focus on intelligence for magic damage, and she'll just be much stronger and more survivable for a fair while. So that's good. She also shouldn't have any new spells yet, but she's learned Love Typhoon, which is one of the other reasons we went with Angela, to see her tier 2 weapon tech. And she'll start learning the upgraded spells soon. Other than that, that's it. Oh, what I should do is double check what rank she needs to learn her spells as well, just so I'm ready going ahead. So Earthquake is 7 intelligence. She's, oh, hold on. Same as Duran. Let's make sure we're aware of... Oops. The menu is so slow. It's crazy. So yeah, she's already got 12 intelligence. So the fact that some of these unlock at 7 is kind of crazy. It's so much lower. So theoretically, Earthquake is a 7 intelligence, assuming the Wikipedia is not lying to me. It might be lying to me. Explode is 10, which we're still above. Spike Freeze is 10, which is the ice one, of course. Thunderstorm is 8, and Lucent Beam is 6. So there should be no problem learning any of Angela's Sorcerous magic, because she's already got more intelligence than she needs, and we'll be raising it even higher. But she doesn't need Spirit for anything, is kind of the key point here. If you want to learn pretty much any Angela spell, I think is just tied to her intelligence. So upgrading her Spirit might not be as important as I was thinking. Maybe I should look into it at some point if Spirit does anything for her other than magic defense, and if that's all it does, then just upgrade intelligence as much as you can and figure out a good second stat. And Spirit might not help her at all, basically. Maybe her light magic? Yeah, that's possible. Alright, one more. At some point, I'll have a closer look at what the stats do exactly, but I have a decent idea, so I haven't worried about it too much up to this point. They're not that complicated. Alright, and our final promotion. Such a promotion party. We're going dark route for the Carly. A lot of the stats are bugged and useless. Yeah, I'm not surprised. I know there's some patches that make luck affect your critical rate more. In fact, I don't even think we get criticals in this game because it's bugged. Squaresoft. It's not as buggy as Secret of Mana, but obviously there's some things that don't work. Alright. So final review here, just one last time. Charlotte, level 18. She is now an Enchantress with her rejiggered stats. And if we look at the spell levels to learn... well, she should be able to heal the group now, right away. Chess Knight is 12 Spirit, and Machine Golem is also 12 Spirit. And I actually don't know if those do damage based on your intelligence or spirit. So that's another question to figure out for later. If Charlotte's offensive spells are tied to intelligence or spirit, because that might make a difference on what we level up. But other than that, you know, we should be fine here. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. She uses monster summoning magic. And more importantly, the immediate upgrade, of course, that is quite useful, although I've been ragging on her a lot. Oh, I guess it actually does take a level up. It's not automatic. Oh, wow, that'll show me. I thought you learned Healing Light plus immediately. So she'll need to get a level up, and then she'll get Healing Light improved. So, you know, that'll be important. Getting to level 19 to get multi-target healing will be quite valuable. I thought you just got that for free. Anyway, for this episode, all we're going to do is travel back to Icetown. And, I know, we're not making a whole lot of progress, but we're going to show off our new characters, and then next episode we'll actually, oh, man. Angela just did 37 damage with a physical attack. So much stronger. From 1 damage, now they can actually help in combat. Oh, and also we can do, yeah. We need to start charging up to our yellow bars. Like that. Should probably save it too, I suppose. That's the second magic seed I've got. I got one off camera when we were just grinding up. I believe if we grow those in the inn, we will get a magic casting item. Like, you know, a fire coin or something. Probably an ice coin, because we're in the ice area. So, in case you're wondering, future tubers, it only took about 20 to 30 minutes to grind that extra level. It really didn't take very long. We spent more time planning the promotions and stuff, really. Yeah, it's kind of too bad that, other than the stat redistribution, you don't get a whole lot of, bonus power immediately upon promotion. No new spells until level 19, even though we've got enough stats for them. We're killing these guys too quick. Duran's level 2 weapon tech is really strong if I can get it charged up. But we're hitting too hard, so the enemies are just dying, basically. Yeah, I heard criticals were bugged, so 1 in 1,000 is not quite right. Here we go. So basically the same thing that those knights on the mountain were doing, and it just hits all enemies, just period, for pretty good damage. Of course, these guys cheated, and they're dead right now, but they cast healing and summon friggin' magic. There's something wrong about the spell casting queue every now and then, because like that was dumb. That mage was supposed to be dead, and he cast 2 spells on us. That's where I get frustrated, is enemies just casting magic after they're dead. But that heal spell got buffed up a bit. Dex doesn't increase invasion? Oh. So pumping up dexterity actually doesn't work unless you put a bug fix on? That's too bad. Elemental sabers on the same of the day, like, so elemental sabers work, but they don't get increased damage on their day of the week. Dead enemies should only be able to cast a single remaining spell. Dead enemies shouldn't be able to do anything. Dead enemies should be dead, yo. Whoever programmed it to give them a final attack for every, like, I can see bosses getting a final attack, but that's, like, pretty powerful. Most enemies should just die when you deal enough damage to kill them. Maybe, like, mini-bosses or some sort of special enemies can get around that, but everything? I don't know about that. Oops. Why didn't you go running? If you use the elemental sabers on element day, you take more damage. Oh. Well, I guess we better be careful about that. Does it work for the enemies? Because there's enemies that have elemental sabers too. So if they take bonus damage if they cast it on themselves, I could get behind that. Anyway, it's just nice that my allies are now hitting for a little bit of damage. If you didn't pick the two mages, this is how most of the game plays out, where you can kind of bully the enemies a bit. As long as everyone's attacking, you're doing damage, they generally go down relatively quickly. So getting those promotions for these two characters, or well, specifically Angela and Charlotte, really helps them out. Mind you, if dexterity is bugged, and perhaps there's no value in getting spirit on Angela at all, maybe I should have been upgrading their strength anyway, because strength does work. Oh, there's her love typhoon, by the way. Doesn't charm enemies like you'd maybe hope, but it does kill them. Could we get a Square game not plagued by bugs? I mean, they made good games for their time, and I guess the bugs overall were minor enough compared to other games that had huge bugs that people just didn't mind. You know, even like Final Fantasy VI has got lots of crazy bugs, but they're generally minor enough that it's not game-breaking, right? Like, the Magic Evade bug and the Invis X-Zone bug and stuff like that, like, you know, they were annoying, but certainly not enough to ruin the gameplay. In the NES Super Nintendo era, there was lots of other games by other companies. When they say bug, they meant, like, quest uncompletable. Game breaking? I don't know. Well, okay, Realm Sketch gets to the point where, yeah, that's pretty bad. Okay. Realm Sketch, I would say far more than X-Zone Invis. When you're literally corrupting the game, that's a different problem for sure. Realm just shouldn't have been in the game as a playable character. I don't know why they added her. She wasn't finished. I never even used her, so I never ran into any of those bugs traditionally because I just thought she was dumb. But yeah, I didn't mind her control ability, but the sketch always seemed stupid, so I never used it. You could insta-kill all bosses. I don't think they were. I feel like some of them were not susceptible to invis or something. But I could be wrong. It's been a long time since I've tried to cheese Final Fantasy VI. I find other ways to break the game that are as designed. I'd rather use, you know, Genji Glove Offering to break the game, which breaks it just as well. Half of Final Fantasy VI was garbage? I wouldn't say that bad. Realm should have been skipped. Who else would I skip? I think Gal almost worked. Like, I can see Gal staying, but needs a bit of a fix-up. Yeah, I mean, the characters that can use... There's like a equipment stat. Who can equip heavy armor and heavy weapons? And that makes more difference than almost anything else, because they can all learn all the magic that you want. So in the end, what you want are people like Edgar and Celeste who can equip all the good gear. And that was more important than whatever other abilities you got from anyone else, basically. I mean, you know... Cyan's fix is actually really easy. All he needs is a sword tech speed up, and he's pretty good. Instead of having to wait half an hour for his gauge to fill, you just let that fill up quickly, and he's totally balanced. It's a really easy fix. What else is there? Cyan was okay. He just needed the sword tech gauge filled up. Sword techs were good. They just took too long to charge up. I would say Setzer could probably go. Gambling mechanics have no place in my RPG. Gambling can stay in the chat. We don't need that in the... And I mean, throwing darts and stuff, we have Shadow for throwing stuff. We don't need Setzer. I think of Gogo and Yumero as bonus characters, so they can suck and it doesn't really matter because they're not part of the main cast. So, Gogo and Yumero get a bit of a free pass. A mime is no big deal. There's nothing wrong with that. And Yumero being a kind of a joke gag character for always berserk. A non-controllable berserk character that has a couple options depending on what you equip on him. I think they're both fine. Like, putting the Blizzard Orb or the Rage Ring on changes behavior a little bit. I almost never would use them, but they did... I think the idea with Final Fantasy VI is they were trying to design a few, even though they only got to like 2, dungeons with multi-parties. So you want to bring more than just 4 characters. You want to bring, for the final dungeon, 12. And they wanted to make sure that if you hated, I think, Realm and Gao or whoever you hated, you had someone else you could bring, like a mime or a Yeti. So I think the idea was they added some extras that maybe weren't main character style or quality, but they could fit into a party decently enough. I think they tried to make Realm a main character, and that was a mistake. She should have just been... If they wanted to add Realm, she should have just joined at the end of the game optionally, just like Yumero. Not really part of the story at all, just joins because she's saving the world, she wants to go with her grandpa. And there's... I don't know. After the end of the world, she survived the end of the world, so that kind of proves herself that she can look after herself. That would have been fine. But she doesn't need to be in Act 1 at all. Well, if you're hardcore, sure. I'm not trying to say, like, speedrun strats or challenge strats. I'm just saying... The intent, I believe, was to have at least 12 characters to play as that you enjoyed. And if you chose to play with fewer, that's fine. I just mean, I think that was like an early design decision for Final Fantasy VI. They planned on doing these multi-group dungeons. So, unlike previous Final Fantasies, they had to add more than 4 or 5 characters. And, you know how scope increases. Scope creep. They keep adding more characters, and they add more, and you gotta add more stuff, and then you gotta make them all unique, and there was a time when Final Fantasy characters didn't need to be all that different. It was fine. So, I'm not 100% sure. I think the next weapon shop will have new weapons for us as promoted characters. I'm not sure if this one does. I think it's the Desert Town. Yeah, it's not going to upgrade that. But yeah, for you future tubers, you weren't part of the discussion, but... Or, I guess I mentioned it briefly earlier on, but the promoted classes get different weapons and armor, so, you know, we'll start seeing different swords for Duran at the next town, I think. It should give him another attack buff. Anyway, we're going to end our episode here. Sorry we didn't really make any progress, future tubers. The goal for today was really just promotions and sort of showing off our new characters a little bit. We'll continue with the story next episode as we go to the desert and try to find Salamando. And maybe find out what those dastardly thieves are doing in Navarre. So, thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed and had a fun promotion party. Maybe learned a thing or two about Seiken Densetsu 3. Because I'd say this is when it gets a little complicated, picking out your classes. And maybe we'll find a ROM fix, or a patch for the ROM that fixes all these dexterity and all these bugs. Friggin' bugs. Come on, Squaresoft. I sure hope those bugs don't exist in the remake. They really shouldn't, but maybe if we get to that one day, we'll talk about that later. So thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed, and have a great day.